guys, it's Loretta with Sparrowhawker Designs, and I just wanted to come on and share this with you and then do a little bit of a stitch and chat. This is something I actually completed, I want to say 6 or 7 years ago. I've never gotten it quilted though. It's just it's a wall hanging with this embroidery. This is a pattern from Crabapple Hill. I think they're based out of Seattle or maybe it's Oregon. I can't remember. Anyway, I just loved the pattern. I did all the embroidery. It's all hand embroidered, and then I put Swarovski crystal right there for the eye, to dot the eye. So I don't know if you can see that, the satin stitch, and I put little beads along here. And then, so this is all the pattern is for this, but then I did, around it, I did these, I'm trying to see what's in the camera and what isn't. These blocks around it, I did, I guess this is a 9 patch and a star pattern every other block around it, making sure that I had the stars in the corners of it. I can't get the camera to go out any further, so yeah, I don't think I can anyway. Let me see. Oh, there we go. How about that? So yeah, it says snowberries, poinsettias, snowflakes, balsam fir, pine cones, and holly berries. And this was just so much fun to make. It's so relaxing. It was so neat to see it come together. This is all satin stitched here. So anyway, I'm going to get it, I'm going to quilt it and use it as a wall hanging at Christmas time. I just keep forgetting to do it. Because I had this and it was you know, packed away, and I was going through stuff trying to find things today and came across it, and I'm like, oh, I really should finish that. The other thing I wanted to share with you real quick before I start stitching and give you my new news is this. This was gifted to me by a woman who, I think it was her, I don't know, her mother or her sister had passed away, and she was a quilter in her life, and I'm not exactly sure why, but her sister had, it might have been her grandmother, had sewn these swatches of material onto these newspapers. The really, really, really cool thing about this is the date. These are all very old fabrics, and it's kind of cool because they've never been in a quilt or anything, so the colors are just like new. But so she sewed them onto the Journal of Agriculture. I'm trying to find the year. All I can find is April 16th. I want to say it's like 1914 or something like that. Here's another one. And so it was one of those things where she didn't have the heart to just throw them out, but yet at the same time, she you know, she didn't use them. She wasn't going to use them, and she wasn't interested in it, and she wasn't a quilter. So it actually was a woman at my quilt guild that I used to belong to. She had gotten an email from this woman and said, does anybody in your guild want this? And she asked if anybody wanted it, and I literally was the only person who raised my hand. I'm still trying to find a year on this. But anyway, let me see if I can get the rest of this out of here. So at the time I was, oh, here we go, Journal of Agriculture, 1908. So Yeah, she sewed these, so this is all fabrics that were not necessarily made in 1908, but were around in 1908. And just look how brilliant and vibrant. Anyway, at the time I was thinking about becoming a quilt appraiser. And so this was just like perfect, you know, study material, you know, that you can use to identify, you know, the dates. Because a lot of times when you're appraising a quilt, it's trying to come up with when the quilt was actually made. And you do that by dating the fabrics. I mean, look at this. I mean, clearly, I don't think this was like a quilt. I don't think she was paper piecing them. Because she wouldn't have used this super flimsy newspaper. I think it was almost, and yet at the same time, I think it's I kind of thought maybe it was just like a swatch. People used to keep like a swatch journal, like pieces that they, you know, that they used in specific quilts and where they got it and how much yardage and all that. But then I started seeing these pieces, and they're so huge. I mean, look at that. That's obviously... So I'm wondering if this wasn't just her scraps that were left over, but why on earth she would just sew them onto this old newspaper from 1908. I have no idea. But what really gets me is the vibrancy of the colors, because usually when we see these fabrics, they're faded, you know, because they've been on somebody's bed and they've been washed and, you know, what have you. So this is literally the only one that's got any kind of stain on it. Otherwise, these, I mean, apparently they were just folded over, just like how I showed you. They were just folded over, just like this, in her mother's cedar chest, or what, anyway. So, and she mailed them to me right away. I mean, that was just, I was so excited to get them. This, of course, has also been years ago. This was probably 10 years ago when I got these. But I also came across them when I was going through things today. And I thought, oh, I should share that. I should share that with somebody. So if anybody has any idea, I mean, I don't want to cut them. I don't want to change them. Obviously, I'm not going to use them or anything. But if you have any clue as to what you think she might have actually been doing with them, let me know what you think. So the other thing that I am here to share with you is a new slow stitch project. I am super excited about this, guys. Suzanne Easdale, who has a YouTube channel called Vintage Blend Studios, she's from Australia, contacted me a couple weeks ago and wanted to know if I would be interested in doing a slow stitch collaboration with other YouTubers. And my immediate was, yeah, of course, this would be so cool. And then afterwards, I was kind of like, oh my gosh, what did I do? So the idea is there are 7 of us, and we each make 6 blocks for everybody other than ourselves. So we'll end up with 6 blocks. We're supposed to do them 6 by 8, but she wanted us to cut them 7 by 9. So I'm not really sure how far to the edge I'm supposed to go with the stitching, because I'm not sure if we're leaving a seam allowance or exactly how that's working, but I'll figure it out. So we do 1 a month and mail it off to the person who's getting it, and then move on to the next one. So this is in collaboration with her, Susanna Easdale. Oh shoot, I forgot Melanie's last name. Hang on. So it's Susanna Easdale, Rachel at Roxy Creations, and Sarah at Roxy Creations, and Melanie Sullivan, and her channel is just called Melanie Sullivan. Jeanette at Mi Cottage Crafts, and Anne Brooke with Sew for the Soul, and me. I feel like I'm kind of like, you know, anyway, it's very funny because at least half of us all sent out emails saying basically the same thing, which was we're super intimidated by the other ladies. And it's just funny. I've been stitching for years, and I put this block together. I have Rachel first at Roxy Creations. I put this block together, and I have not stitched one thing, not one thing, because I'm so kind of intimidated. Yeah, this is really funny. Anyway, so we all picked out colors. Rachel wanted French blues and reds with some tea-dyed fabrics, which is, these are tea-dyed, and some vintage linens. So I don't really have a vintage linen for her, but I do have like, I do have some tatting and that kind of thing. And I'm thinking about, this is a piece of red sari silk. I'm thinking about actually putting this down first, just to kind of give the block a little more red. And I'm going to buttonhole stitch this down. So Melanie picked bright pinks and greens, which no problem. I have tons of those. I have tons of red and blue. I just did a blue houses quilt, so I had tons of blues. Sarah picked the same thing I did, which was sort of spring garden colors of like pink and green, yellow, lavender, that kind of thing. Jeanette and Anne both picked gray and antique white, so shades of gray and antique white, which is the hardest for me. I've never worked in that color palette, and when I went to pull fabrics for this project, I realized I didn't even have any gray, so I went and got some fat quarters of gray. And then Suzanne picked like pink and teal and cream and beige and light brown and that kind of thing. And so anyway, so this is the first block, and you're gonna see me do my first stitches. Oh, and I also have this little piece here that I think I'm gonna do some red work on, and I might try to work that in somewhere. I'm not really sure. I might actually start with this so that you guys can see how I do my straight stitch, because I don't do the straight stitch like you're supposed to. I didn't know this. You know, I was blissfully embroidering my life away, and I was on a bus to Paducah, to the big quilt show in Paducah, and I was embroidering something on the way down there, because, you know, you can't just sit on the bus and do nothing. And this woman leans forward. I might have already told this story, but anyway, this woman leans forward, taps me on the shoulder, and she says to me, "You do realize that you're doing that wrong?" And I was like, no, I didn't know I was doing that wrong, but, you know, thanks for pointing that out. So apparently I do it backwards, apparently. So let me get this needle threaded, and I will try to show you how I do it. But it's funny how, you know, you don't really, because I mean, I learned to embroider just from a, you know, kind of like a book or whatever. So if you're not watching somebody else do it, or if you've never taken a class or anything, it's easy to see how you would not necessarily know the right way to go about it. I mean, now there's YouTube, but when I learned this, there was no YouTube at the time. And I also am like, you know, now it's second nature. There's no way I would do it any other way, because I would mess it up. So here's the end. I come up about a stitch length in front of the end. And actually, because this is right on the edge, I'm actually going to go up even further. So I go up a little bit, and then I go back, and then I come up. I don't know if you can see. I come up in front of the stitch. Actually, you might not be able to see it because This is the, so let me just try it over here where there's no no ink. So wherever I'm trying to go, I come up like this. Oops, can you believe that? Just lost my thread. Of course, because I'm videotaping. So anyway, I come up like here, and then go back. Okay, let me try that again. I should have just gotten just a plain piece of fabric to do this on, but instead I picked one that had ink on it, so we'll just go with it. Anyway, so that's how I do my straight stitch. And now I have to thread this needle again. I know a lot of people really hate to thread needles, but you know, after years of beading, you have to get, because the beading needles, the eye on the beading needle is super, super small and tiny because it has to be able to fit through the beads. It has to be able to fit through like a size 15, which are tiny. So from years of beading and having to thread those needles, just regular sewing is an absolute breeze. I can like thread a needle in 5 seconds, and that's even me being, you know, in my mid 50s and unable to see. So anyway, guys, I'm super excited about the slow stitch thing. I think we're gonna, I think Anne said we should call it slow stitch collaboration 7, because there's 7 of us involved in it. And if you want to watch the progress of it, or not the progress, we're all going to do videos on the blocks that we receive, and we can also do some videos of process videos, you know. And then since Anne has a huge I guess Instagram presence, she thought that we should do that and hashtag the slow stitch collaboration. So I have an Instagram. I have not always it started out just as a family Instagram, so there's a ton of pictures of my children and grandchildren and the dog and me exercising and doing all kinds of goofy things at the beginning. But then here lately I have been doing more and more of the craft type of postings. So we all have Instagram accounts, so if you want to follow us on Instagram, you can see postings from what we're working on there and follow along the progress. But you'll also be able to see them on the videos as well. Anyway, so this is doing this kind of embroidery is really relaxing and peaceful because you know, you just follow the lines and you don't really, like when I do crazy quilting or this kind of thing, you know, you're just, I mean, this is also very relaxing. I'm not saying it's not, but when you're making up your own pattern and you're not following any kind of thing like this, that requires a little more concentration, but that's okay. It's still a ton of fun. So I don't know if you can see or not, but yeah, so anyway, apparently I do it backwards. So when I come up, then I go back by the stitch I took before and go back down through. And apparently that's not how you're supposed to do it. I also cut my fabric wrong too, like on the when I'm doing rotary cutter. I cut it, I think I cut it like a left-handed person. I cut it like here, like here's my ruler. I'll put my fabric like this, and I cut it this way, where everybody else I know cuts it on the other side. I don't know, it's yeah. Anyway, so I'm going to, oh, I don't need to cut this, I already got one. I'm going to do a couple of buttonhole stitches on here so you can see how that's done, although I did do a video on how to do a buttonhole stitch. So you can go back and find that if you want. So we had a really bad storm come through here on August 11th. I think it was the same day that they had the tornado up in Iowa, or maybe it was like the day before they had the tornado up in Iowa. And it was I have never seen a storm like this that wasn't actually a tornado. I kept waiting for the tornado sirens to go off, and they never did. And you could just look out the back window, the kitchen window, and you could see the wind. I mean, it was like a physical object. You could just see it like roll across the backyard. And it just devastated so many. Like we went and we had a couple of downed branches. We have a lot of big old trees on our property, and so we had a couple of down branches, but you know, everything seemed to be okay. And my son and I then, you know, we went and we were watching out the front window, and when we moved in, we had two giant 110-foot tulip poplar trees. One of them got hit by lightning about 8 years ago and had to come down, and then the one that was left, you know, they're kind of brittle trees, and so we were like watching watching this tree, and it was just bending in half, and I just thought, oh my gosh, any minute we're going to lose this tree. Well, the storm passed and we didn't lose the tree. We thought we had really, you know, dodged a bullet, because we drove up and down the main road out here, and there were just trees down everywhere. One tree was completely, you've probably seen pictures like it, where it's completely uprooted, like you can see the roots, and it landed, I'm not lying, an inch from the, 2 inches maybe from the people's house. It was incredible, just trees down everywhere. So we thought we had dodged a bullet. So it's been like a month, and I noticed that the tulip poplar, the leaves on it were starting to die, and I was just like, I wonder what that's all about. I thought maybe it had a disease. And we went out for our daily walk, and for some reason this time, we usually cross the road past the tree at the driveway, and this time we crossed before the tree. And so I was walking up the sidewalk looking at the tree and really studying it, because the leaves were dying, and the trunk was completely cracked down to about 4 feet off the ground. You could see daylight through it, and I was completely freaked out. I was like, oh my God, this tree is going to fall any minute. You know, of course, I'm like, I get super excited over things, and where my husband's a little more, you know, he's like, oh, just call the tree guy and see what he says. You know, me, I'm going, it's gonna come down. You know, we're doomed. And so sure enough, I called the tree guy, and he got out of his car, and the first thing he said to me was, I'm sorry, but it's got to go. I'm like, really? You can't save it at all? He's like, no. He goes, I don't know how this thing has not already fallen. And guys, if it had fallen, it would have landed like in the middle of the road, like where people are driving by, and probably would have taken out power lines and, you know, fences. If it had fallen our way, it would have completely demolished our house. But if it had fallen the other way, I don't think it would have landed on anybody's house. But it could have landed on somebody when they were driving by. And he got out like this special magic rope that he carries and tied it around the trunk. And he's like, this is a Band-Aid until we can get out here the next morning, which was today. And, you know, I was just really struck by this 110-foot tree. It took how many years to grow, like 60, 70 years to grow, and it came down in less than 3 hours. It was just so heartbreaking, and I'm a tree person anyway, so yeah, so it was definitely a heartbreaking thing to to watch. And I told the arborist, I'm like, oh man, we really thought we dodged a bullet. And he goes, nope, you did not. But we did dodge a bullet in the sense that I noticed it before it actually fell, you know, and nobody got hurt, so that's good. But now, you know, we had the 2 tulip poplars in the front yard, and now we have no trees in the front yard, and it just looks so bare, and it's just so bright in the living room. So, anyway. So I just thought I would share that story with you. But still in all, I mean, and it's super expensive. I mean, that's a huge expense out of pocket that you weren't expecting, you know. But compared to the people in Iowa, we did dodge a bullet. We didn't have a tornado, so that's good. But anyway. Okay, guys, I think I'm gonna stop here for now. But you can see I had to just come on and do this on the camera to get over the hump of my fear of stitching on this thing. So I hope Rachel likes this. This is my French blues and reds that I have. I'm just going to finish this with a buttonhole stitch around the whole thing, and then after that I'm not sure, but I'll come back on and update you guys and let you see it. And I'm super excited about this project. So I hope you guys have a great day, and I know if you're in the southern hemisphere, you're getting ready to have spring, so enjoy your spring. And for us in the northern hemisphere, we're getting ready to go into fall, my favorite. So yeah, so hopefully we'll have nice weather. All right, guys, take care. I hope you make something you love. Bye-bye.